liberation and your life after the war. So last week you said that the last camp that you were at was Bergen-Belsen. That's correct?
That's where I was liberated.
That's where you're
yes.
liberated. So can you tell me what?
That's
What-
if you want to know,
Mhm.
that's in the British, at that time was in the British zone before
Right.
Germany got back to its normal government. Go ahead.
Okay. So can you tell me what life in
In
the
the camp, boy.
camp was like right before like liberation time? Like, did you have any knowledge that liberation was right around the corner, or were you totally in the dark?
Well, we knew it was liberation around the corner, and I'll tell you why we knew. Right before how should I say, they took us out of camp, they put us on the trains. We abandoned the camp because the planes were circling. The morning before, they were circling around, and they were American planes.
Do you remember what year?
Or British.
What month it was?
That was, I would say end of April. Well, it's end of
44, 45.
end of March, beginning of April, because I was liberated April the 15th in Bergen-Belsen, so it had to be in the beginning, the first week of April.
And is this 1945?
Or maybe the second week. That was in 1945, yes.
Okay.
And the planes kept on circling and nobody went out. Everybody stayed in their barracks because they didn't take us out to work, and later came an order in the loudspeaker that everybody should get out in front because the people who are able to walk are going to walk to the trains, and who is not able to walk to stay in their barracks. But most of the people walked, and there was a very few, they had one of those barracks, sort of like a hospital it's supposed to be. And I assume some people were left behind. If they killed them after we left, I do not know exactly what happened to those people. But we all walked to the trains, and they put us all on train. I would say approximately 100, 110 people on this box cars, cattle cars, whatever you call it. And it's a funny thing, they put a guard to the door, one or two, I don't remember. The first night or the second night, some people you ever notice when trains are locked one wagon to the other, it's sort of, they cut it out, the refugees, and jumped off of the train. In the morning, the guard noticed it. He couldn't notice it, and it was dark in there, and the train was moving. And some people must have had knives with them, and they cut out the board, and they broke it out, and the people crawled out to the hole and jumped off between,
Right.
the cars. And there was one Jewish man was with us. He was from my town. And it's amazing. In the morning he was going, he jumped off too. But
What happened to the people when they jumped off?
this actually they were because this guy turned up in Bergen-Belsen a few days later, a week later, he turned up there. So actually he lived wherever he could gather from in the country, whatever. But he survived, and then we met after the war. He also came to the States, but he passed away very young here in New York. His last name was also Stern. He was a distant relative. But he was one of them that jumped off at the train. He had enough nerve because nobody knew where we were going.
Right.
And what made it so bad, the distance that we traveled, you could have traveled in a day easy, even half a day. But the train went around and couldn't pass here, they had to try another circle. And they kept on going, most of these stations were all bombarded,
Okay.
all were destroyed. And the first thing they bombarded was, like you say, the stations where the transportation and all that, but they wouldn't let the people go. They tried to hold on to the slave labor to the last minute. They wouldn't give him, they wouldn't let him go. And then, like I was reading in that book, the ones who came to Auschwitz, the people when they invaded Poland and the Ukraine, they were called the Einsatzgruppen and so forth. These people
Right.
went around to kill. In some places, they were ahead of the army when they occupied the territories. They were even ahead, and you wouldn't believe how they used to kill the people there. Some were shot, but a lot of them were put in automobiles, big trucks. The truck was enclosed. They were killed with what do you call
Carbon
it?
monoxide.
Carbon monoxide. They were built like this to produce the carbon monoxide. These diesel motors, and the people just went to sleep inside and died. And they used to catch them in the street wherever they could and just herd them into these trucks, and that's how they killed them. And they must have had ditches where they dumped the bodies. And a lot of it was done right behind the army lines, or sometimes even ahead of the army when the war was going on. In the Ukraine especially, and a lot of times, it says there in this book, with this, I told you this guy wrote, that the Germans didn't kill the people. They had the Ukrainians that volunteered this, that did the killing for them. And then there was especially in one place, it's mentioned, when Himmler came to watch, he wanted to see how the killing is done. And the men killed the grown up men and women, I mean the army, the certain Germans. And then the kids, they didn't want to kill the kids. The Ukraine, the guys from they killed the children. I was reading that yesterday, matter of fact.
We actually, it's interesting, we learned about Hilberg the other day in class, and we told our teacher how you had already told us about him. She was very impressed.
You studied about Hilberg? By the
Yeah.
way, he was drafted from
We
Colombia.
read
He was
about.
drafted into the army from Colombia
We read
after he finished college.
Yeah, we learned about, he created a model of how the Germans, like, systematically
Yeah.
killed the Jews. And
The four
He's
steps.
even got a list where they killed so many, the towns, every town practically. His list there with how many people they killed in these
Yeah.
towns.
yeah, he wrote this, well, what we learned
And
about
that-
was this
you mean
four-step
your
process.
teacher knew about him?
Yeah,
It's
it's
in
in our textbook for the class.
I'm surprised. They teach you some worth, some history.
Yeah.
Who is that?
Uta.
Salzburg teaches that?
No, he teaches us more about how to interview. Our professor her name's Uta Larkey. She's a German woman. She's not Jewish, but she's extremely knowledgeable. So, I don't know
Well, she was impressed what? That I know about Hilberg?
that you told us about him.
Oh. I just told you because it happened that I
He just
start
happened to
reading
find
the
that
book.
himself.
Yeah. We told her that you showed us the book. So, anyway, so you were saying, so you guys circled in the train.
And we kept on. An area, like I said, we could have traveled it in a few hours. I went 8 days or 9 days. And the only thing, one time, they gave us something to drink. And hardly any food. So a couple places, the train stopped, and it was the bombardment. You wouldn't believe it. Some places you came in, one car was on top of the other, 2 or 3 left in the bomb, and the explosives was thrown up in the air like you see sometimes when you have a hurricane, not a hurricane or something, where the force of the
Earthquake?
not an earthquake, where they'll pick up sometimes a car and just put it.
Oh.
You
Tornado.
haven't seen
Tornado.
anything
Tornado.
like that.
You mean a tornado?
A tornado will sometimes the force will root up a home and move it.
Right.
So it's the same thing, that the explosive was so great that you sometimes used to see these cars piled one on top of the other. And the door was open, the guard went out to walk around and watched. He saw what was going on. And a lot of people, I ran out and grabbed, you wouldn't believe it, 2 raw potatoes. That's what I ate. Did you ever try to eat a raw potato?
Wow.
And that's
So
what
he
you
was
survived.
lucky that he get that.
Right. That's
So
amazing.
till you got, and then in bed, whenever we reached Bergen-Belsen,
So you went back to Bergen-Belsen?
we went back. We haven't reached it yet. We left Hartzingen.
Okay.
The name of the camp, the last one that we left from, was Hartzingen. And I'll give you a little example. This was, let's say, the tunnels.
Okay.
Here was Elrich, here was Hartzingen,
Okay,
here was another, it was 4 small camps. And here was Dora, that mentioned there.
Yeah.
In that article, the name Dora is mentioned. And it, so all these, most all these places, there are people, most all of them were in their tunnels. The tunnels had many, many openings. You couldn't rely just on one entrance.
Okay.
Entrance from this side, entrance from that side, because they were huge mountains. The main one was a track that was running from here, let's say, till Buchenwald, 120 kilometers under the mountain. So, if I would say at least a 500,000 people lost their lives, I wouldn't come maybe close to it. Because life was nothing. If he needed 1,000 people, he went and grabbed 1,000 people from all the occupational territory, from all these different countries, from there to North. I mean, life. I don't know if you ever read anything in the Ukraine or in Poland, and some of these places were already, before they occupied them, or in Czechoslovakia, they were already, this general is going to get this place, this general is going to get this place, those people are going to settle here, and those people are going to be settled here. It was all arranged. They're going to get rid of the people that live there, and it's all going to be German
Right.
territory. They didn't, how should I say, they didn't think negative. I mean, they were so sure of themselves that they're going to lose the war, they wouldn't think of that. Till the time finally reached, they realized, even with the invasion, they couldn't believe that the Americans and the British attempted an invasion of Europe.
Right.
Sometimes, I don't know if you ever watched the war films, when the guy saw all these ships with people, when the first landing was, he couldn't believe, nobody believed him. When he found Berlin, he said, there is an invasion. They couldn't believe it. They were so sure that this belongs to them, and you know, I don't know if you did much reading. Who broke actually the back of the German? Did you ever?
The back of
The back. Who really squeezed the Germans out?
the Russians?
The Russians. I don't know, sometimes if you read history, where was Napoleon defeated?
In Russia, not in France.
In Russia.
In Russia.
They draw them deeper and deeper, and they froze them out. The people died, they were frozen to death.
Why do you think Hitler didn't invade Russia earlier?
That is a very good question.
Because it makes-
Nobody knows.
Because, well, from my...
Maybe he wanted to secure the rest of Europe first.
But from my reading about the Holocaust, it would seem to me, but because of the fact that he didn't invade Russia, it seems to me that his ultimate goal was to go to Jewish populations and wipe them out.
Well, that was why he took Poland. The
Right.
biggest Jewish population of any country in Europe was the the Poland.
Right.
And I many times myself asked, how come you have Jewish people every corner of the world? But how come Poland, the Jewish concentration of that country was so great? They had more Jews in one country than all Europe. I'm talking all Europe.
Right.
How come? So it's not easy. And somebody gave me some answers, but it's not easy to understand. To begin with, the Jews originally started when the Jews left, let's say, Israel.
We're talking a long
At the
time ago.
beginning. We're talking about the common era.
Yeah.
As Jews leaving Israel, they did it over 3,000 years already. You go to Iraq, Persia, for instance.
Babylon.
Persia, where we celebrate Esther and
Purim.
Purim and so forth. It's over 3,000 years. Assyria. I mean, you had these. In those days, they were the most powerful. Egypt, the most powerful countries of its time, and the most knowledgeable, the most advanced. Where was your irrigation started? Where was your alphabet started? Where was your weights and measures and stuff like that? Anybody learn that?
In Egypt, there's a lot of civil.
A lot of it was in Egypt. It's already by glasses. It's mentioned Egypt, and they start to fool with the glasses. But Assyria, did you ever read, what is it called? Excuse me.
Okay.
Read what?
I don't even remember what it's called. Arabia, the Talmud, with the Assyrians. I got the dictionary. You young ladies want to learn something, some history. You can show it to the teacher too. The only thing I gotta find
He
it.
learned all this after he came to America.
I didn't read it all. I was a kid.
He didn't learn
And
anything
besides,
at
they
home.
wouldn't let you read it at home. You're gonna get too smart.
And he didn't know any English when he came here. And I met him as soon as he came here.
How do you guys communicate then?
It wasn't easy. She spoke a
Yiddish.
little Jewish.
Jewish.
Yiddish.
That's right.
All I knew was a nickel and a dime. It was difficult.
Invaded Germany. from the-
Germany actually, when they invaded Poland, went up to a certain half of the country. Then Russia came in and took half also.
Right.
I think Germany did that for a purpose. Germany couldn't go through Poland without any problems. But maybe the Germans needed to regroup or something. So Russia came and took a certain part also. Within what, a year and a half, 2 years, and Russia went and Germany started on Russia. So they took Poland, they took the Ukraine, and they took all these little small countries. You had Estonia, Latvia, was another one,
Yugoslavia.
Lithuania. So those three also came in, and then Germany occupied them. And after that, after they went into Ukraine, Russia just kept on going to Russia. They went up today. I don't think it's that time they called it Stalingrad. Today it's another name. It's called.
Isn't that part of Russia?
Sure, it was part of Russia. They were actually, what, 20, 25 kilometers from Moscow. And people really thought they're gonna really go through Russia. But the winter came in, and that's when
Right.
things slowed up, and they had to stay there, and you know, Europe suffered a lot. Russia, nobody knows how much Russia suffered during the Second World War. And they say it was 22 million people died in Russia in the Second World War. But they don't say how many died in the streets and all that from hunger and frozen. Because it wasn't a matter of money. You couldn't buy hardly anything there, even if you had the money.
Because of the communism?
Because of communism and because they had such a huge army and everything was the army. And people don't realize it. Bergen-Belsen was not built as a concentration camp. Bergen-Belsen was originally for Russian prisoners. They starved them all to death. There is pictures of it. The Belsen, the camp, it was two. See, let's say this is one and this is one. This here was barracks, assembled like a regular barrack. And each barrack, I don't know, contained, I would say, at least 80, 90 to 100 people. Within a kilometer or 2 kilometers from here, there was Bergen-Belsen. That was actually, originally, it was a camp for German soldiers. They're permanent buildings,
Okay.
and 2 and 3 stories. When I came, that's where they put me in.
This
And
is when
the camp was so full. Wherever we went, everything was full.
this is when you got off the train after being
When
on
after
the
I came
90s,
off
yeah.
of the train, I wound up on the attic. That's when they put me up on the attic. I had at that time a friend. He was originally from Czechoslovakia. He said to me, came out of the train, I was 17 and a half years, 18 years old. For 8 days I was locked up in that car. Hardly anything to drink, anything to eat. I wanted to take a blanket with me. He said, leave it there. Just get yourself up and come. He grabbed a hold of me and dragged me out of there, and we started walking. And all this I saw. Trains. But this I remembered when I went back 4 or 5 years ago with my grandson. Now to explain you. You walk out from the train, it's even a platform. There's a platform from cement, you walk out. And from there you just keep on going. When I went back 4 or 5 years ago, first they wouldn't let me in. I come into the front. As I come in the front, there stays like a small booth. You've been maybe in Israel?
Many.
Or you go in certain places you can't go in on an embassy or some. There's always a booth outside, and
Security.
if you want, you have to go and give your name, and they gotta call in and so forth. There was a booth there from 2 sides. On one side, only one of them had a soldier standing guard, and right in front there is a big tank. I think it's a picture there of that. Anyway, he said, you can't go in here. I said, why? Because this is the British headquarters. You know, each the Americans, the British, French, and the Russians, each one had a certain place where they had the headquarters. So He says, this is the British headquarters, and you can't go in there. I said, I was liberated in there, I would like to go in. I remember certain places, certain things, I wanna look at it. Oh, you can't go, sorry. So he said, you wanna go to the other camp. So you picked myself up, we were there, me and my grandson, and we had a German driver, and we went to Belgium, to the camp. That camp had nothing left.
They burned it.
Just because it was so full of typhoid and TB that they burned the barracks down to the ground. Give me that book
This,
that I gave you.
with your photos?
Yeah,
This one.
there should be something that you didn't take notice of something. You wouldn't believe what this is, most of it. This is you ever hear a camp by the name Sachsenhausen?
Yes.
People don't know this. Sachsenhausen was a camp that, on a small scale, most of it was political prisoners, foreigners. Most of it was all foreigners that they captured in Germany. Sachsenhausen did not belong to the same group of labor camps that I was in.
Oh, okay.
Sachsenhausen was a camp built by the Gestapo.
Alright.
And they had a gas chamber and had when we went there, the crematorium were wiped off, completely destroyed, and they were rebuilding them then because the German police didn't want to destroy everything, not to find anything.
Who was rebuilding them?
The Germans.
When?
When we were there 5 years ago, they were rebuilding,
The crematoriums?
everything fixed
Why?
up.
Why?
See
Why
here?
would they rebuild them?
For the people to see. See here,
See, I've
I
learned.
said something to my grandson, when we came there was a ramp you had to go down, not far from the crematoriums. And a metal door, and was a small window. You could not see through the window inside because it was so dark inside. But it had benches around the wall. I said, but outside that was out revolving. I said, this is a crematorium. They drove the people down the ramp and in there and closed the door and they gassed the people with cyclone. Till it was proven different, but I wanna show you something.
When I took a tour of Birkenau,
Yes.
there,
Bergen,
but part of it's burned down, and they told me on the tour that the reason that they would never rebuild it is because they don't want Holocaust deniers to say that it's fake.
Yeah,
that's why they didn't wanna
a lot
rebuild
of
it.
them.
So why are they?
But that one wasn't destroyed. The only thing was destroyed was the crematoriums.
Right.
The crematorium was just ovens. You were in Germany? You
No,
said
I only went to
Auschwitz?
Poland and the Czech Republic.
All right. Next time, if you ever have a chance, go to, what do you call it, Prague.
Yeah, I've been. I went
Been-
to Terezin.
You went to Theresienstadt? Did you
Yes.
see the oven still standing?
Yes.
You did see that?
We
Yes.
were there a couple of times.
You have?
The,
Oh, you have.
those ovens
Both of us.
are still full with human ashes. Today.
My daughter went to.
See, he asked me, this woman was in Dora.
Oh, is she the woman who helped you and your grandson find your name?
Yeah,
The
she's
paper
the
that
one
your
shows
father.
me, that's right. No, that was in Buchenwald.
Oh, okay.
This is, but you found my name here. She was a very, very pleasant person. Where were you? Because they called her from Buchenwald that I'm coming to Dora. And she was waiting and waiting and waiting. We got lost, we couldn't find it in the hills there. But I'm looking for something and I don't.
Irvin, turn them a little carefully. It's Michael's,
I won't do a thing to them.
I see how rough you are.
No, I don't.
How long were you in Bergen-Belsen before you were liberated from there?
Not too long. A week.
A week, oh, okay.
Not too long. Not too long, 10 days. But I was there from April the 15th till, I think it was June the 17th, 18th, something like
So they
that.
kept you there a couple months,
Yeah,
but it was
but-
under British.
But they moved me out too. They moved me to buy cellar for a short time because they were afraid the people are gonna get
Is that in
typhoid
Germany?
or TB.
But once the British came in, life in the camp was, you were a free person, right?
This actually, he never saw this. This is, he took this from a picture.
From a
off the
photograph,
wall
of course, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it was nothing. But I wanted to show you something here. Go ahead.
So you were there for 10 days,
This is the clothes that you wore.
yeah.
A jacket and a pair of pants, that's it. And in the winter dish, you are supposed to be a coat. It didn't last too long. People cut them up, did everything with it. Go ahead.
So, when you were liberated, what was it? You were there from April to June. What were those
Let me
couple
tell you
months
what
like?
it was after we were there.
Okay.
It was a Sabbath, and a Saturday we were sitting, already came down from the attic and to our room on the first floor. And there was a certain group of Hungarian soldiers, they were called the Iron Guard. They joined the Hitler army to come to Germany. They were guarding Bergen-Belsen. And all of a sudden, on the afternoon on the Sabbath, a guard must have walked by, the window was open, he threw in a pack of cigarettes. You should see these people. For a dime for a cigarette, so. This one wanted a cigarette, that one wanted a cigarette. So anyway, the normal time, you never saw this. A guard to go and just throw you in cigarettes. So you knew the time because at night when it was quiet, you could hear the explosive, the bomb. Not only the bomb, the artillery and so
Right.
forth. And Sunday morning somebody came out and said, you people are liberated. We are not under anybody, we are liberated.
But you stayed there after you were liberated.
Where else you gonna go?
Right,
Even-
of course. So what did they
You
give
are
you lots
liber-
of, did they give you
So
a
and
lot of
that-
food
that was
then?
no food.
There was still no food even
There's
after
still
liberation.
no food, no water.
The British didn't bring any
They
in?
said they poisoned the water. Somebody said they were afraid to feed the public with the food and all that kind of stuff. So we didn't have anything for a day or two.
So then, for a day or two.
Day or two.
Okay.
Then we had.
Alright, so then in June,
In June,
you went to Sweden?
no. Before that, they pulled me out and took me to a town not far away from there. And they set us up, I don't know what do you call it, some kind of warehouse it was, I don't know. And we stayed there and I didn't like it there and I didn't want to stay and I walked back to Bergen-Belsen. And when I walked back, I had a first cousin. We were pretty close, even in the camp. We used to, if he had extra food, we used to meet each other. He went to work, he came from work and I went to work. You know, we used to work in shifts. Sometimes we work in shifts, 3 shifts working in the tunnel. So sometimes we run across each other. And if he had food, he threw it over and gave me the extra food. My father was still with me at the time. And then he was very sick after the war.
Your
My
friend?
cousin came down, right after the liberation came down, so sick.
But your father didn't see liberation.
My father
No.
didn't live the liberation. And he was so sick, he looked like
This is the friend that you told us last week how you said he was your brother and then they took you to Sweden.
That's
His
exactly
cousin.
the same
Your-
guy.
Okay.
He just
But didn't you
passed
tell
away.
them? Didn't you
It
tell
was
them
just a
he was your
year.
brother?
Yeah.
You
I
did,
thought, yeah.
Right, okay. But he was
So I
actually
was
a-
afraid he will not
let you go. So
let
then,
me go.
you were, at the time when you went to Sweden, you're at this other town that they brought you to.
Right, I went back to Bergen-Belsen. I come upstairs where he always is there.
And he wasn't there
He
anymore.
wasn't there.
So then you asked around.
So I asked around. They told me two people came and so forth. And
Right,
so finally, I went to Sweden also.
yeah. So you've told us, a bit about
But
Sweden, but I'm curious about,
See, I left Germany, and a lot of things have changed after I left. I didn't stay around. People got more organized. People couldn't travel. The Jews didn't want to go home. They knew there was nobody enough left at home. To Israel, you couldn't go, especially
Why?
if you were in the British zone.
okay, right, that makes sense.
To go illegally, smuggle yourself in.
It was dangerous.
You not only is dangerous.
So it was
if you're captured, what did the British do? You don't remember. You're too young. They put you in Cyprus, not a
Right,
concentration
in a
camp
refugee
there.
camp.
That's
But
right.
but the British wouldn't allow you to go to Israel because it was still they were still controlling
That's right.
Palestine.
They were still part of the British Empire,
Right. So
so they
So
wouldn't
you-
let you go there to begin with.
so when you applied for a visa to the United States,
No. So we had it's after we went out the quarantine from Sweden. They put practically every nationality together. You know, they didn't pick Polacks with the Jews here or Czechs with the Jews there. Or, I'm talking Goyim or something like that. So usually try to the Swedish government to put the people. By the way, when we came, there was very few religious Jews in Sweden.
right?
Very, very few. There was one, the rabbi for the, how should I say, for the whole Swedish Judaism. He was the spokesman. And he was actually, you know a little Hebrew?
I know. Yes.
Okay. Did you ever hear the word masculine?
Masculine. No, do you know that?
What does it mean?
Huh?
What does it mean?
The smart ones,
Oh, okay.
the ones who ask a lot of questions, and you never heard that expression? He belongs to the masculine. No. And this originally started in Poland and Lithuania, but people were more modern. They interpret the Bible differently. To look, your father learned the same 5 books of Moses that I learned.
Right. Of course.
His school interpreted it one way, my school interpreted it the other way.
Yeah. That's what I like about Judaism.
Your father is a reform, right?
Yeah.
Where
He grew
did
up
it-
conservative
All right. Where did the reform start?
in Germany.
In Germany.
Moses Mendelssohn.
Moses Mendelssohn. Where all of a sudden, how did he get reform?
Well, he wanted to be able to be able to live a German life, to be kind of
But
assimilate.
you know, when the reform movement came in, the Jews wanted to be like the German. They went
Right.
to church.
Moses Mendelssohn said his big line is, "You be a German on the street and a Jew in your house."
But they went to church.
Yeah, they just lived like any
But
other German.
they still had to get it from somewhere. That's where the masculine came in.
Ah. So was it masculine versus Hasidim?
Not the said they wanted a more open, modern society.
Okay.
Okay? When Mendelssohn came, he ate kosher.
Yeah.
He kept the holiday. If he kept his way or my way, that's a different story. But you had something before the reform movement, which you never thought. Your father would know about it.
Okay.
You ever heard of the Nalogen in
No.
Hungary?
No.
Never heard of it?
No. Wait, can you hold on one second?
Go ahead.
Why do we only have? I mean, there's no time limit from the class.
You can come
Do another
back.
tape? By Sulla for.
A week, maybe a few days.
And then you went back to
I
Bergen
went back.
Belsen.
I couldn't.
And then to Sweden.
And then to Sweden.
Okay.
And then to Sweden.
So in Budapest. Yeah.
So that's where it comes in different. I mean, I wanted to invite you here for even for dinner if you would.
Oh, you're so
That's
nice.
so nice.
Year and a half.
So we want to focus on your story. So we were in Sweden for a year and a half, and then what?
So after, as soon as we dispersed us to our destination where we're gonna stay after the quarantine, this person came to visit, this person came to visit. The first person that came to visit.
Where were you in Sweden? Sorry.
You wouldn't Krampen, the first place it
Did
was.
you tell them about the camp there?
Yeah, moment, and I'll tell you who came the first person to see us in our camp. I mentioned to you, Irvin, was it the first time he came or the second? I think it was the first time. A rabbi from Seattle, Washington,
Yeah, you did mention that.
Volgaland.
Right.
He was one that was always trying to buy our Jews from the Germans. Remember I told you when
The
we
women.
came to Sweden, we found quite a few girls.
Right.
That he bought out, he paid $7, $8, or $9 per person. That's how much a life was
Disgusting.
worth.
It's disgusting.
I know.
Understand? And they brought him over to Sweden. When we came to Sweden, we found them. They were there already 6 weeks. That means they were brought out 2 months before the liberation.
Right.
But Sweden was a very, we talking before about the Maskila,
Mhm.
a very interesting man. His name was,
It's kind of hard to remember at that time.
Long time
very
ago.
interesting, very learned man. Your father would know the name. He went to Constantinople in those days to university
Constantinople.
with Gustav V, the king of Sweden.
Oh, wow.
Not the empress. He'll come to me before I get home. I'll tell you
Okay.
the name. And he was a real reform. Anything we asked, he questioned. We went, and he went to the government because he said, if you bring in more Jewish people and all this, he said, you can expect that anti-Semitism to get bigger and bigger. So he didn't want too many Jews to come to Sweden. There was only around 15,000 Jews after the war when we came to Sweden. The Holland, remember, or was it? I don't remember now. Where they rescued the Jews with the boats,
Oh. In Denmark?
Denmark. All the Jews of Denmark, I would say 96, 97% were taken out of the country and brought the fishing boats, smuggled them to Sweden.
Right.
Very few they captured. And it's very interesting. How did we find out? They were supposed to be all the Jews around up Yom Kippur night at Kol Nidre. And one of the Gestapo men was very, anyway, it's a few things I would, you get me more and more to talk about certain things. But, and from Sweden, this man came first, and we asked him, how can you get to the country? I don't want to go to Cyprus and another camp. He said, I really don't know. Right now, there is no way anybody can come in the country. So that was in 1945. And then 1940, end of 45 or the beginning of 46, we were in another place. We had already kosher camps and all that kind of stuff. Then another man came. He was also a refugee. He was a refugee from Germany. His last name was Jacobs.
All right.
He was a rabbi in Germany. And there he was a refugee. But he had connections with the organizations here in the United States. He also had a son here in Israel, in the Rabbinical College. And somehow he got an idea, because you couldn't come with no visa or anything to this
Right.
country. Maybe they were taking students. So he came to the rabbinical college and suggested maybe you could issue some visas, some affidavits that you're gonna take care of, support him and so forth. And that's what happened. He
That's
brought
it, you got
30
that?
affidavits, and we came over 30 boys from Sweden.
That is incredible.
And he has a picture.
That is really incredible.
I just came across.
Oh, there it goes.
So this is 1945, 46?
Yeah,
1945, 46.
1948.
So when you came to rabbinical college for?
about 2.5 years, I would say.
Wow. And you guys met the minute, like, as soon as you got here?
Very close.
46.
How did you meet?
His stepfather came to the school, and then he must ask me home and so forth, and that's how we met.
That's so nice. And what was it like to be in America after having gone through such horrible
It wasn't
things?
so, at the beginning it wasn't so, because you couldn't communicate too well. And most of the
You
boys,
couldn't.
very seldom you ran
And I.
into somebody that knew enough Jewish,
He
enough
smiled at me and
to
I
be able
smiled
to,
at him,
to,
and that
to,
was
to
it.
speak fluently with you and so forth. And most all the boys didn't want to stay here. They all left for New York.
New York, right?
Every, I think we were 3 or 4 that were left here in the rabbinical college.
Wow. And so, what year did you guys get married?
48.
48. Wow. So that's nice.
It's a long time.
Yeah. And what did you do? I mean, so you were ordained as a rabbi?
No, I
No.
never stayed long enough.
Never a
I just,
rabbi.
but
He's
they still
called
call me
rabbi,
rabbi.
but he was-
I saw that. We saw that on your.
I saw. Well, I used to work as a shochet behind him,
And his
heard that
title is
name.
Reverend.
He's the head of the Goucher here and so forth.
Why is your title Reverend?
That's what they
A
give you.
shochet is,
Because anybody who has license has to have papers from another rabbi
Right.
is referred to like a preacher was
Oh, okay.
referred to as a reverend.
Ah.
So I said to the rabbi, he calls me Rabbi Stern. At work, I'm talking when I worked
a lot of people call
kosher
him
meat and all. He said, I'm not. He said, the trouble is you know more than the rabbis.
That's funny. So,
Well, he had to study. He had to
Of
study
course,
for this,
yeah.
Yeah.
so did you like the teachings at the rabbinical school?
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah. And they didn't teach you in English? They taught you in Yiddish?
No, most of it is in English, even today.
Oh wow.
And you know, this is one of the schools, when I was there,
He
maybe
did
it
go
was
to school
200
here for a
boys,
while.
Right.
no more than 200 boys.
Okay.
Today is 900 boys, 1,000 boys.
What's the name of this school?
Not Israel Rabbinical College. It's in the nice.
Very smart.
Yeah, it's in Mount Wilson Lane. You go down a little bit, not far from you. It takes 10 minutes,
So
15 minutes.
and so by what year would you say that you were speaking English pretty fluently? Like how long did it take you to learn English? once you got-
English,
How did you learn it?
I would say 6 months, and I start pretty much.
6 months, and how you taught yourself by reading newspapers?
That's how I started.
Wow,
Reading newspapers.
that's great. So, so you were
I captured the
He was very
English language
determined.
quite
that's
well.
6 months. That's great.
Because I got children and grandchildren, finished big colleges, and he says, "Adi, where did you learn so much English?"
Yeah. Well,
Where?
you would never know that you weren't. I mean, that you weren't a native speaker.
The only thing I have, still do once in a while, with the grammar.
Okay.
Otherwise,
My Hebrew grammar is awful.
then I have somebody here. If I don't know a word
Great.
or something,
She can
You
help
ask her.
she helps
Yeah.
me out.
So I have like a few questions for you, kind of
Right.
just about your perspective after the war. How do you today view Germany? Like, how do you feel about Germany today?
The new generation is completely different. They know, you had after the war, oh, we didn't know this, and we didn't know that, and we didn't,
bunch of
had no
lies.
idea of this. Most of the Germans will tell you that. But they realized what actually happened. And a few years ago, the foreign minister was the prime minister. They don't call him that, the prime minister, the president. Said he would like to see Germany to be like the United States, all kinds of nationalities. And then, you don't follow this. You know how many Jews live today in Germany?
A few thousand, maybe a couple thousand.
If I tell you close to 180,000,
I had no idea.
I don't either.
That's a lot.
that's a lot of Jews.
They're brave.
You don't see Jews. You know, years ago, a lot of Russian Jews came to the United States.
Right.
You don't see that anymore.
Huh.
You know where mostly Jews go today? From Russia?
Just Germany?
Germany.
Oh, for
Not-
my family and a lot of families like would never buy a German-made car. How do you feel about
He
stuff,
feels the
stuff
same
like
way.
that?
He feels the same.
I'll be honest with you, I never bought a foreign car from any place. Only American made.
Right. And in our class, we were learning about the ideas of intentionalism versus, what is it, functionalism? And, it was the idea that the intentionalist school of thought is that Hitler and the Nazis from the very beginning, their intention was
Well,
to
the
kill the
Nazi
Jews.
Party was before Hitler
Sure it
came
was.
to power.
Right. So, but we were learning that the intentionalists, like from the very beginning, when Hitler, in the 30s and the 20s, Hitler's plan from the
It was
very
already in
beginning
the
was to
20s,
kill
the Nazi
all the
Party.
Jews. And then we're also learning that the functionalists believed that their plan wasn't to kill all the Jews until into the war.
The
So
plan was to kill all the Jews,
from the very
all
beginning.
the minorities,
From
Right.
the beginning?
So
from the beginning.
Why do you think that?
Why? To begin with, if
I
you
think the
read
same
some of
thing.
the ideology, a Jew was not considered a human being. He was considered so low, about the lowest, I don't know, the Jew or the Gypsy was about the lowest of the low. Because they only believed their race is the proper race to exist in this world.
Well, our teacher is a functionalist, but I personally, like you, I would think that it was their plan from the outset, especially because we were talking about earlier. How can a person who doesn't believe it was their intention from the beginning, say why didn't Germany invade Russia? It doesn't make sense.
You know, to
They
be
froze
successful
there.
to invade, anybody can
They
invade.
froze there.
But to hold on to what you capture is not that easy.
Right. You need a lot of manpower.
A lot of these people are not used to, the climate in Russia is different
Right.
than most of Europe is
Like,
used to.
especially in Siberia.
It froze them out.
Right.
And that's one reason. Second, whatever the Germans shipped to Russia to the army, when they had 500,000 or 750,000, hardly half reached them.
Right.
The partisans, just like they bombed the railroads, they destroyed a lot,
Yeah.
and it never reached. And the people was,
Yeah.
you cannot fight with an empty stomach.
Right. So, why did you choose to become a shached? How did you choose?
Well,
or why did you?
if I want to get married, I had to go make a living.
Right. So, and you wanted.
And that, we had in the family at home, some of my uncles were the same thing there.
in the business.
And yeah, and the same thing in Europe.
Wow. So, and you were a shached for 60 years?
59.
59 years. Wow.
I have a cousin in Muncie, upstate New York.
Uh-huh.
A few years ago, he has a very good friend that went to yeshiva together in New York.
Okay. What?
Your father went in the rabbinical school in Israel,
For-
in the Reform.
Yeah, for 1 year
It's
in
called
Reform
another name there,
Hebrew College, for 1 year in Jerusalem, and then 4 years in New York City.
New York.
What do you think people like our age or our generation? What would you like people to learn from your story, to take away from what you experienced?
life has to go on. What you do with your life, or how to live your life, it's not easy. People, oh, I'm gonna tell her to. It's not easy. Not everybody wants to live my life,
It's not easy to tell somebody else.
and I don't want to live somebody else's life. It was you know who the most famous person is in Germany, in German Jewry? Go ahead.
When did you start to talk about the Holocaust?
Yeah.
When, like, were you talking about it right after
Oh.
the war? Or,
What? I got married. I didn't want to talk about the war. What am I going
He
to tell?
didn't speak
tell my
about
wife.
a thing for years.
What does she know about
How
the
many
war? She was a
years?
young kid.
I can't tell you how many, but his
She was a
children
young
got
lady.
older when they were
Another
teenagers.
thing,
That's when he
after
started.
the
When your
war,
children were
during the
teenagers.
war, I don't know if you came across
He had
some-
nightmares
some
about
Jews
it,
in
you
this
know.
country.
A lot of people do.
I saw people when they heard the name Roosevelt, they turned around,
Oy.
excuse me, and spit. But Roosevelt to
Tell
the
him
people
why.
in this country,
Tell him why.
he was God.
Yeah, my family too. They
He was
were.
God.
Because of the
They
Depression.
begged him. There was Wolverine, there was a rabbi by the name Silver in Cincinnati.
Well, your children
See,
were older.
it's no use. You only irritate sometimes certain people
yeah,
when you talk about the war.
yeah.
That's not the reason.
So
he just
you
couldn't
don't talk
about it.
about it.
But what made you start to talk about it?
I don't know.
His
The
children
kids,
asked him
they
a lot
start
of
to teach her in
questions,
school.
that's why.
They asked me where I go to talk here. When they asked me to talk on Tisha B'Av, and I go to see Thruel, they asked me where I go to talk to these people. So I went.
So your children knew you were a survivor, but you
No,
didn't actually. they
I
didn't.
was. From where I come from, they didn't have no children's transport. From Poland, they didn't have no children's transport. The only thing they had from children's transport was Germany. So maybe a couple from France.
Are you talking
I
about the
have
Kinder
a
transport?
book. You know that book? That book.
Just what I was wondering about is your personal children, your own children. They knew you were a survivor.
Yeah.
They kind of
They know.
But
understood.
they didn't know your
Yeah,
story.
they
but they didn't
know.
know your story.
Yeah, they know my story.
They knew,
Besides-
but not detailed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Not detailed.
Besides that, see, I cannot find.
He had nightmares for some time.
Could you talk about the nightmares? Are you willing to talk about that?
No, I don't think so.
I still have them sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm not
Fall
ashamed
out
to.
and sleep.
I'm not ashamed to tell you.
I have nightmares too.
Yeah, so do I. If I went through anything
It's
like
not
that,
the same,
It's not the
my
same at
friend.
all. But my boyfriend